the Lebenspraxis podcast with Josef Bartz, exploring a life of connection and depth. All right. Hello, everyone that is listening, and welcome to another episode of the Lebenspraxis podcast. This time I have a guest I'm very happy to have. It is Soisci Porchetta, and we had a conversation that is online some time ago. It was 2020, so now it's 2023, so that's 3 years ago. And actually, this conversation was several episodes, and if you want to listen to it, you can find it on my YouTube channel, because this was not part of this podcast. It was before this podcast, before I created this podcast. But you can find it there, and I can also put a link in the show notes. I give a short introduction about Soisci. So Soisci is living in Tasmania, which it's a small island in the south of Australia. And when she told me that she moved to Tasmania because before she was living on the main island, that she moved there, I read a little bit about Tasmania. It was interesting to read. So if you have never read anything about Tasmania, then maybe look at the Wikipedia article. It's quite it has an interesting history and a little bit of a, like, not just a little bit, but it actually quite a sad history also. Yeah, but it's worth to read about Tasmania. But Soisci is not originally from Australia, but she has actually traveled quite a bit throughout her life and lived in many different places and has also done many different things. She has been a Muay Thai fighter, a professional Muay Thai fighter, winning and also maybe losing at some point also, but mainly winning. And from there, when she had seen what and done what she wanted to do there, transitioned to become a teacher and a trainer, and has been working a lot with a general movement approach in the last 10 years, something like this, I would say. Probably, 10 years. And has transitioned, if my observation is correct, more and more in the last years in her own practice, but probably also in what you're doing with people, to integrating more cognitive mind meditation practices. And this is what I'm also very interested to hear, because the last time we talked publicly here was 3 years ago. And I would imagine that your practice has evolved, maybe also, with living at a different place, that also might mean a different way of practicing, a different way of perceiving the world. And would you share with us what you're in your practice and what you're doing currently are interested and excited about, Soisci?
Yeah, sure. It's amazing to do this 3 years later and have this journey of evolution. So, like you mentioned, changing places has a big effect on my whole world, which affects my practice. I really see practice as integrated with life, with daily life and environment and community. So the last few years, it was, long story short, as a foreigner, my visa situation brought me to move about different places and work at different facilities. So my practice with teaching has been unintentionally moving with actually helping facility owners to accomplish their vision, but also to offer, I suppose, like my gifts or my strengths, which will be to see, how balanced does this environment look? So if I go to one facility and it looks like it's mostly young males, that are very goal-focused training there, my observation would be, why are there not other ages or a better balance of gender within there? And how can I make that happen? So this happened organically, but as I've moved from more than one place, I see these interesting demographic observations, and how does the training and the presentation of the training attract and invite and welcome more people into that space. So when I was back on the mainland, I was very drawn to working with more elderly people, or not just able-bodied people, like normal people who were not super in love and crazy about movement skills, or I suppose people who have some openness to develop physically and beyond that. So that's affected my work a lot. And last time we had the podcast together, we were speaking a bit about how much time we like to spend per class. And that was during the time of that podcast, was when I was transitioning into more 1-hour classes, which was new for me, because before I just taught without a clock, and I had very small, intimate group of very committed people. And the hour-long class, actually, I've really gotten used to it. I still do sometimes 1.5 or 1 hour workshop will be different setting. But it was, I think, it was quite humbling, because it made it less about what I wanted to do and how much I can offer to people in the amount of time that they have to spare for this activity. So then maybe they have another hobby that is unrelated to movement, and they don't have to give it up, or to take time away from their families, or other things, their job, real life stuff. So yeah, moving places has really affected how I teach, because I really see myself more and more as someone who's just here to serve as best as I can, which means I have to study the context of the environment and then offer what appears to be my biggest strength. And that connects back to what I studied at university, which was anthropology. And it's all like observing the microculture in different environments and understanding it. And then from there, I see, oh, maybe I can offer this or that or something different. So one example in the facility I'm working at now was, I noticed it was mostly females. So opposite of the previous place I was working at in the mainland. And I thought, interesting, why? And I start to observe what dynamics could be playing out into that. And then I experiment and say, okay, well, maybe the way we present online and on social media, we can showcase more males. Otherwise, they will not feel really incentivized to come to a mostly women's class, and change the choice of music, or which moments are captured, and being kind of more selective to try and attract a better balance to the space. And in my own practice, environment has played really a big, big role, adapting to the seasons, which affect my energy levels, what I'm wearing, my mood, and becoming more and more interested in bushcraft and survival skills. So that keeps me more out of a movement facility and trying to connect more with my surrounding natural environment, urban, but also there's a lot of bush and mountains and ocean here. So my own interest shifted outside of the purely physical stuff, went from pottery to doing I guess is quite physical, like African dance, which I loved. And then changing place, maybe you find amazing teacher and the new place doesn't have that, or it doesn't match the expectation. So here I'm looking more at how to learn survival skills like shelter building, tracking, making crafts, carving, things like that. So that's like my own interest has been shifting and matching with what the environment is bringing me. And then for my internal practice, it's not too different because my teacher lives in India, and I guess it's different because I used to go and visit him a few times a year before COVID, but I haven't been since 2020. But we meet online every 2 weeks for a group, like a lecture and practice. And I have my own daily practice, which is sitting twice a day, every day. And that's not really changed for years now. But my experience of my life changes as I deepen the practice. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Nice, interesting. Yeah, I have a few different questions that I wrote down. The first one that I would be interested in is when you work more with the elderly, what can you pinpoint down some things that you would do different than working with the younger people? Assume I don't know anything about that topic.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. As a teacher, I have to say that working with elderly was one of the most transformative experiences I've had, especially when we're talking about like much older, like 80s plus, and with big physiological changes, maybe pacemakers, replaced joints, huge loss of coordination and range of motion. And in a group setting, the physical abilities can be, and even mental, maybe some, they are physically okay, but they're losing a memory, right? Or getting some kind of like aging disease, like a Parkinson's or dementia. In the group setting, the needs across the individuals are so different. Maybe you have very fit person, very healthy person, very mental health problems or physical health problems, and then putting together a movement class that caters to everyone's needs, regardless how different background and level of ability they have. That taught me to really observe, listen, and be very open and very creative. So with the younger people, you also have a range of abilities. Maybe one is an athlete and one is sedentary and one is injured, but there's not such a huge discrepancy, a huge difference. Or maybe I'm not risking to, unlikely but possible to give someone a heart attack because I let their heart work too hard in a training. So working with them taught me so many things that I did not learn from any of my teachers or from physios or from my own practice, because I'm not there yet. I'm not 70. I'm in my late 30s. So working with them helped me to feel not just completely comfortable, but gave me no choice but to arrive to every class with no plan whatsoever. And then observe what there will still be like a collective vibe or energy. And I say, okay, maybe people, I don't know, it's a very cloudy, rainy, gloomy day, and they are more low energy and cold and not motivated. So we start with something, that's energizing and building heat in the body, or motivation and not this depressive mood, or or maybe they are also, even the elderly, like everyone else. I guess that's one consistent thing. Most of them, they don't become more calm and peaceful, I noticed, as they age. Like I imagined in my idealistic, like, oh, when you're old, you are wise and desireless. They are, trying to do the things with the young people and be involved in politics and social things and other activities. So maybe they're really scattered or drained from this nonstop doing, busyness, and how to calm their nervous system and get set to do some work. So it's just arriving without a plan and trusting that all the previous years of training and knowledge are going to, I will cook with the right ingredients. Okay, now it's some spice, a bit of strength training, now some chamomile, more qigong-like exercises, and finding that. And that affected how I taught the younger people too, because I thought, how can I assume I know exactly what they need or that my program is the best? I cannot know that until I am there. So that was, it really amazing. And I had to be very humble and respectful that some things are just not possible. And like one more thing that's really deeply meaningful, this experience I had with them is realizing how unimportant a lot of the things that I thought were interesting or important or useful are. In my early years, I thought, oh, well, it would be great if everyone can do, a few push-ups or squat a certain way. And there was just this kind of assumption that the exercise is good for everyone. But working with them, I could see, the squat is useful and good to train so that they can continue their gardening or to play with the grandchildren, or any kind of like a spine extension is not so that they can in that moment in the gym enjoy a physical freedom, but they can keep looking at the clouds and going for a walk in nature and have that ability to enjoy life more. So this brought about the idea of, how do we cultivate more joy through the practice? Not just the skill is replaceable, but does that development of certain skills help you to really have a richer life outside of the studio? So it's more, how do they feel most of the time after several months of training, not during and immediately after the session.
How often would they come to the class, these elderly people?
We had 3 classes a week. And I'd say the average person came twice a week. And this was back when I was working in Canberra. Here in Tasmania, I have 1 or 2 students and is starting from 0 again.
Yeah. And would this 2 times per week or so what you would have in mind for them, or would it be 3 times per week?
I just no longer keep assuming anything.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the person. Like if that's the only thing they're doing, I would wish for them to do, more than 3 times a week. But maybe they don't have the energetic surplus or the desire, or maybe they have other activities. So I think as long as someone came once a week, I was happy to see them, and I knew it's enough to make a change, because the work we would do is kind of activating what's already in the DNA or reactivating what went to sleep. It's not a learning a brand new complex thing. So even if they really put effort, once a week is enough to create some lasting transformation.
I was thinking a little bit about the situation that with someone that is 80 years old, you have an interesting thing time-wise, no? Because you might not have many years to work with that person. And on the other hand, the question comes up in my mind, when does a change actually happen to that person? You know, like there's the short-term change of the mood and how you feel. But when you're 80 years old, how long does it take to create a significant change, whatever this means, you know, that you would say, hey, yeah, wow, that now it's quite different. It's like a bit of a, on the time scale, an interesting thing.
Yeah, it is. And each person is so different, you know, based on what did they do in the previous 60 years and what are they doing outside of class. For some of them, you know, I feel like if you want to create a measurable physical change, maybe it is too late. I don't know. Like, I don't guarantee to anyone, you come with me and you're going to get these results. But I see that their attitude to life changes, and then that, you know, maybe they are more outgoing or more brave to try something, and it start to trickle outside, not just inside the session. And I wish I was more organized and scientific to record stuff, which I don't really do, but I have maybe some photos, but it's not so organized. You know, normally it should be like same clothing and outfit and lighting and all of this stuff. But I have seen, you know, a woman in her mid-80s having quite severe, like a kyphosis, right? Like really a rounded thoracic spine. And she was doing once a week, not every week, but most weeks for a year and a half. And we would sometimes do just, you know, reaching forward, touching the floor, and then expanding back, opening T-spine and seeing how far back you can look. And one day and she couldn't squat also, so the knees were bad, the spine was bad. And after about a year and a half, she was doing squatting, no weight, just, you know, a yoga block, touch it to the floor, stand up, and then reaching back. And she still had the kyphosis, but she could open it. And I was really shocked because I did not expect that transformation. I just thought if she does it, it's better than if she doesn't do it. But I don't know how much change, structural change, there will actually be. But I know that it's not harmful for her and she will feel better during. But I saw even at that age, just once a week, not every single week, there was a change, structural change in the spine, in range of motion and shape. So that gave me so much confidence and motivation to just keep going, and still not having an expectation to measure the physical progress, but they will come back and tell me their experience. And I know that it's working. It's doing some magical things. So I trust these, you know, non-tangible but real results that people express when they're training.
For me, it will be very interesting to see how you age, Soisci, and I'm very happy that I'm a tiny bit younger, because otherwise it would be difficult to see, because males are usually dying a bit earlier because they are a bit more dumb. But I hope that when you're 80, that we still have contact and that I can see how it goes. That would be just, I'm looking forward to see the people that are taking care of themselves.
I would really love that. I have the intention and would love to stay in touch and collaborate into our old age. And it's something I think about quite often, especially having worked for several years with elderly people. The first few weeks, I really felt like an imposter. I thought, how can I teach these old people when I'm so young? But I really saw them as my teachers, and I was able to still guide them with the knowledge I had from, and learning with them along the way. So I'm very curious to see on myself as well. I'm very realistic, and I also don't care to retain a lot of the things that I can do now. Like I don't think I will care at all to do handstands, or I have no idea where my interests will bring me, but I would be so happy if, I don't have to have like a knee or hip surgery, and I can enjoy to go in the jungle when I'm 85, if I live that long, and to play with my grandchildren and puppies and kittens and do things that I enjoy without worrying about being fearful of a fragile body. So that's kind of like a longer term goal.
I think you will. I think you will do a lot of gardening when you're old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Let's look when you're 80. Just try to remember what I just said. But
Or maybe we
that's
do
my
a
feeling.
podcast every 5 years or
Yes.
something
Yeah.
to check.
Yeah. Did you see the Limitless? Do you know this? This is a series on Disney Plus with Chris
No,
Hemsworth, with
no,
the actor of Thor. Do you know Thor? This Marvel
yes.
thing? Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
He's from
He's from
Byron Bay,
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's about aging well, and in the beginning, most episodes are sort of more, let's say, how do I say, like a no-brainer, like it's about strength, and it's about or for us, like it's about also things like cold exposure and fasting and so on. But they also talk about the cognitive, and that's interesting. And actually, the last episode is very interesting because they put him into sort of a fake elderly place, like they build this place and they bring old people that sort of are acting there. They're sort of, I mean, they're real, but they're also acting their role there, and so on. And he spends time with them. So that's a very interesting episode. But also there's one episode before that is about the brain, the cognitive health, and they show they show a study in Germany where they look at the brain scans from older ladies that are doing coordination work. So they are doing dancing, but not free dancing, but they learn choreographies.
Yeah.
And they clearly show that there is a difference after, I don't know anymore the weeks, but the studies also, I think there's some charts available online that I looked up, and there's some comparison where I don't know where the data is coming from. There's some comparison to other things, and it's interesting to see how much coordinative movement stuff, how much positive impact it can have on the brain. If I remember correctly, they looked at the amygdala. Yeah, they looked at the places of the brain because it was about dementia also. So they looked at the parts of the brain that are important for remembering and so on and so forth. Yeah, and it was interesting to see how they compared it also to other things, and that one thing is that it's physical. One thing is that you have to learn something. So in that case, because they wanted to, it should be about having the brain plastic and remembering, and not necessarily improvisation, which I would say, yeah, that's the real dance. It's not when you do a choreography in that sense. Not the real dance, you know what I mean? But it's like the next level is, okay, you're moving freely. But it was not about that. And I think I'm not sure if they said something about this in the study, but it was a community thing, like 10, 15, 20 that were doing it together. And from the comparisons that I saw there, the things that were together with other people were usually better for the brain. Yeah. And something like running alone is like pretty low on the list of effectiveness, because on the one hand, you're not learning anything new. And then, yeah, it's very repetitive. You're doing it alone. So even though it is physical, for the brain, like it's very good, of course, for the heart, for the metabolic system, that's clear. But for the brain, running is not so interesting. So I liked about this that, like, what stuck with me is how they clearly showed that in this older population, there was a positive difference made in the brain. That it was not just stopping to get to deteriorate or something like this, but actually these regions that they trained through that became bigger. Like it became clearly there was a progress happening there.
Yeah, I would love to see this study, and I just know this to be true. It's just like a knowing. And the community aspect is super important as well. I think we are a tribal species as human beings. We cannot really function alone. We help each other, and we bring different skill sets, and we are mammals. We co-regulate each other's nervous systems, right? Like you're seeing like your child, especially as the younger they are, the more they need the touch, the more they need can't regulate their own nervous system very well. They learn that over time. So the carer is doing that. And as adults also, through our relationships, through our community, this happens. So even you're doing just a hobby, a dance, maybe you are mildly stressed that you're struggling with what the feet are supposed to do, and then your friend shows you, they have a patience, and that has different layers, not just the neurons firing where you are able to embody a pattern, like, that's how I put my left foot and the right hand. But there's so many things that are receiving like energy and life. And it totally makes sense, and just shows how much of most of our aging diseases are preventable or could be managed much better than they are. Like it's so quick for all the medications and therapies to come out when there's a much more grassroots level of upgrading the system that can happen. And I don't know if you are familiar with Gabor Mate's work.
Yeah, I never read a book from him, but I know who he is.
I only watched some, of his talks and videos, and Wisdom of Trauma I think he's a beautiful person. And what he says about many diseases, including cancers, will also be tied to something being blocked, right? Some unprocessed emotion stored up in the body. And there was one doctor I went to see. He was an alternative doctor, like an immunobiologist, and he was scanning for different health things, and he's got different machines and his own methodologies. And I just inquired about breast cancer because it runs very strong in my female line of the family. And, they say, oh yeah, genetics, your chances, percentage, blah, 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 blah. And I asked him, I said, okay, so my grandma died from it and my mom died from it. And, I just check a little bit, but I feel very different to how they were. And he scanned and he said, like, look, of course, there's always a chance and there's no guarantee, but the tests showed like that I had all healthy tissue so far. And he said, he has never seen a single case of breast cancer that is not tied to a deep sadness or depression. And that was running also quite strong in the female side of my family. There was this like intergenerational traumas coming down, which is something I was very aware of throughout my childhood, not in such a sophisticated way, but I sensed that, okay, something is, I need to change something in this chain. I don't know what it is, but I could feel it, this more like a epigenetics, right? We learn from the environment, not it's within your DNA and you can't change it. And I think that's where all these internal practices have really transformed me from the inside out, where through meditation techniques and accessing state of meditation, there's a detachment from the physical world around me, or the attachment to the body is lightened. So I think there will always be some attachment to the body. We will all be somewhat afraid in the moment before death for most of us. I'm sure if you know, I find out I have 3 weeks to live, I will experience great fear and cling to the body. But yeah, I really feel that, like the doctor said, he said, look, because he also does the more esoteric work, as well as the, you know, herbal and using machines to measure cells and do things. He said, you don't appear to have those tendencies that every other patient he's seen who has that type of cancer will have. So that shows how on an individual level, we can have so much great power to not like change the destiny, sound really, I don't know, cliche or kind of tacky, but you have some choice in directing how you age. So everyone's going to age and everyone is going to die, no matter you are healthy, unhealthy, whatever your history is, right? The body will age, will get weaker, age and die at some point. But between now and then, I think there's so much that is within our hands, and to have a much more positive experience and doing dance, movement practices, being with community, I think they are vital parts of being human. Medicine will never be able to fix these problems, but community and healing with awareness and going also beyond healing, creativity, art, all of these things, they play a very powerful role, and maybe there's less money to be made and they're just not promoted in the way that they could be.
Yeah. Yeah. The thought that you mentioned stuck with me, that about the history, about the family history. I have a very good friend that has mentioned similar things to me also, how in his family he feels like emotions that he feels are not from his experience of the world, but they are from former experiences of his grandfather, for example, where he knows that this one had a difficult time, and this is still somewhat brewing in him. And it's an interesting thing in a sense to stop seeing yourself as a person that just appears suddenly in time. On the contrary, you are a continuation of a flow that is happening. So you carry things with you from, no idea how many generations, but I mean, definitely from your parents, that is clear, no? Like, okay, everyone talks about, my parents this, my parents that, blah, 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 to an extent where I sometimes tell people, okay, calm down. Yeah, not everything is your parents' faults. But yeah, that can be even from people that you maybe have never met, like from people in your family members before, and maybe you never experienced them, but something is there that is carried. And then to do this practice, and this friend of mine also has in very similar to you, like did a lot of movement, did a lot of internal practices and so on, and through that also slowly started to realize and discover that a bit more closer, this different connections. And yeah, I also sometimes think about this topic, like what does it mean, for myself. And it becomes each year a little bit more clear that, how do I say, like on the one hand, like you said, that this power of looking into things and of changing and so on and so forth, but also that your consciousness and your ability to make your own decisions, in that sense, how this is just a small drop, in everything that is there and that is happening. Yeah, just when you sit down and you observe your thoughts and so on, you realize, yeah, okay, it's just there's this thoughts happening, blah blah blah, or you realize, my eyes are drawn there. It's not that I consciously choose it, like it's just happening. And like through this mindfulness, through this meditation, but even without like using this sort of fancy word for it, but just through observing what's happening and through realizing, yeah, interesting, like now I'm angry and like I cannot do anything against it, like it's just happening and so on. Yeah, and sometimes also this when you think about where does it come from? Why actually, when I really look, like, why do I feel now like this? Yeah, which is often such a in nonviolent communication, one phrase is it's never about the dishes. Like the example is, okay, someone comes and you didn't clean the dishes and blah, blah, blah. It's never about the dishes. Like there's always something like further back. And then sometimes it is just about the dishes, of course, but like there is this case actually, but yeah.
Being able to discern like what's the origin of that displeasure or feeling of agitation is helpful for taking steps toward being free from that feeling, right? I'm a big fan also of the nonviolent communication work. I think that like when we talk about movement, we're talking about potentiating and firing and rewiring neural pathways, and then it shows up in the body, right, through a posture, through a movement, and it's not so different. I mean, it's not visible physically, although there will be some signs too, like you can see on people's faces, maybe someone has a permanent, actually I have a little bit, right, like this one, or the lines across, or like especially on the old people who have natural face, it will be written also in the posture and in the face, this stuff, and they're just impressions, like neural pathways, but subconscious things that are become ingrained within us and also in the body. But I think just like in movement, you can't like fly without technology, or there are limitations, but there's actually a lot you can do. And I think it's similar for the internal. Like, you can't guarantee that you will never get a cancer, or my knockout will not give me memory problems in my old age. So I had a concussion from fighting. Because I do a lot of coordination work, I can improve my chances, but you just never know. But if I don't try, I think that's where there's like a death in a way, not even trying.
Yeah. I fully agree with this. What I meant is also maybe not about this layer, but somehow, the layer of, how do I say? I struggle a little bit to explain it, sort of causes of things, but that we have a very great possibility to steer the boat and to show the path. That is for sure for me. Maybe the question is, is this when you talk about the destiny we use it a bit
or
cautiously.
Karma, different,
how that you take care of this. I mean,
yes.
There's always the question about when you talk about destiny, isn't that already predetermined that you will take care of your concussion? No, that you do the coordinative work instead of thinking, I'm changing my path. Like, you know what I mean? Like the gods already decided that you will take care of your concussion.
Most probably, I think. Yeah. But I love what you said is that that is what you're supposed to do. And I think the cause, whether it's your ego or God or whatever causing you to do it, it doesn't matter. And what caused also a trauma becomes not too relevant. Like I see, especially a lot of younger people, what is it called? No, Gen Z is us. No, we are millennial. So Gen Z is the next one, I think.
Are you already millennial, Soisci? No, that was a bad joke.
Yes, I am
You're the first millennial.
Yes, either first or last, one of those.
Between boomer and millennial, there is something. I'm not sure what it is. Then there's millennial. So, I think
Are you? What are you?
I'm millennial, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's...
Maybe you are like the baby one and I'm the old one of the millennial.
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of the millennial scale.
Okay. Okay. The ones younger
it's Gen
than
Z,
us.
yeah. But Gen Z is after, like the last generation that was still born in before 2000. And then comes Gen Alpha. I know a lot about this.
Wow. I didn't even know about Gen Alpha. Anyway, I see the younger ones more and more common to slip into this victimhood. Very disempowered, not having strong role models around, unfortunately. Growing up with technology making life convenient, or efficient, because I wouldn't say it's easier. The suffering the cost of it is another thing altogether. But there's a lot of this, this happened in my childhood, so I am like this, or because I am female, I am always disempowered. Like I didn't really see so much of this growing up, but I'm hearing more and more and focusing on maybe I'm appearing a bit uncompassionate, but seem like non-existent problems being created into something that covers news coverage and social media and all over the place. And I think that's where the danger of becoming very obsessed with the cause of trauma is dangerous and disempowering. And even Gabor Mate, he says it's not what happened to you, it's what happened inside of you when the event happened, right? So maybe your dad didn't let you have a candy, and for you it was traumatic for some reason. And then someone else had a beating, really heavy beating, but they experienced same level of trauma as Josef not having the candy. So I think it's not obsessing with what caused it, this feeling in my heart coming from my great-grandfather who was at war and had PTSD, or was it, it's, maybe we will never know. And if you believe in reincarnation, you will never find out where it came from, or even intergenerational. But if you know it's there, then becoming freeing it up, I think that's what the work is. And that is healing and magical, not only for the person doing the work, but it stops that chain of intergenerational trauma. So your children or generations after you will not receive that same thing that had been passed down, because maybe the dad didn't do that work, or the granddad didn't do that work. And it has like a reversing effect. I saw this is pretty personal, but I feel it's important to share for whoever is, enjoying to listen, because it's a very relatable human condition. My mother, she had extremely hard childhood during communist, mainland China, and very tricky family situation. And she had a lot of problems with her mom. And when her mom was very sick, I asked her, can you forgive her for what she did? And she was unable. Good job.
Sorry. There was a spider. I wanted to step on my head.
When you come to visit in Australia, you're going to make friends with so many of them.
Yeah.
So this forgiveness of her own mom, and this is, I was younger, but I was already seeing this is very important. And she said, but what she did was really, really quite extreme. It's very difficult to forgive. And I said, I understand that, but the forgiveness is actually more for you than for her, right? Because the person who suffers the most is not the one. The one who's hated can suffer immensely, especially if someone's doing bad actions with bad intentions. But the one who is storing that resentment, that I think, it affects your sleep, your health, your relationships, everything. So to be freed from that is, it doesn't matter when it happened or what happened, but the work has to be done regardless of that. Otherwise, we keep it forever.
Yeah. It just reminded me of, there was this weird event one time in my school, that there was a Buddhist monk coming into our class, into our English class. And because I didn't grow up in Berlin. I was in this small town at the Baltic Sea. So I really wondered how did they get this, because he was really from Tibet. And he told us his story, and this was incredible. He also wrote a book about it. He's called Bhakto, and the book is called A Hell on Earth. Because when, how was it? Somehow he was originally from Tibet, and the Chinese put him to prison and tortured him, and really tortured him for years, and with this, things that are just insane. And he repeated it so many times that how he's not angry at them, and with this smile, but I'm not angry at them. How he didn't let he didn't let himself be affected in that sense by it, sort of he forgave them, but what the effect of this, what was that he was not emotionally carrying this all the time. I mean, he was carrying it with him because he was telling the story, but the reason why he was telling the story, I think, was also because he wanted to inspire others with this. Yeah, now the word resiliency comes up, no? Like, which is always when, there's things that, like you said, the wimpiness of the new generation.
Wait till I'm old. I'm only gonna get worse.
There's always also the counter thing is happening, no? And this is that one word that is very
hip.
That's very hip at the moment, is this word resiliency, that traumatizing things and so on, you just stand up. You just stand up again. You learn to stand up again, like Batman when he fell from into the well or whatever. Yeah. So that was such a strong example. You know, he was just there like this one time for 30 minutes or something like this. But I still see it, how he's sitting there in front of us and tells the story. Like, and I was maybe 14 years old, and it was so clear. This is something very, very special is happening here at the moment with this person telling us his experience that was so beyond anything that I had ever seen before in a person, from their experience, what they had to endure on the one hand, but also how they dealt with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what a great role model, especially at the age of 14, you know, have this older man come in and share this, you know, like authentic, genuine experience and truth. Like that's really amazing and very important. You know, if only we could have more of this. And you know, another thing I think that's like resilience is all the rage, you know, and or people think if they have an ice bath that they can control their mind and overcome any kind of agitation, or that makes them resilient, you know. But I think yogis would joke, you say, well, maybe just have dinner with your mother-in-law or your difficult relative or your difficult boss or colleague. That will give you a different kind of resilience. But one thing that's, you know, not, it sounds almost pathetic, is also the word love, right? Like, I don't think resilience alone is gonna give you that really deep empathy and compassion for someone that has literally tortured you. There has to be, so why is love seen as like a hippie or weak or new age thing? I think that's like, you know, it's the most powerful force in the universe, actually, right? And then Martin Luther King Jr. spoke a lot about this, and he wrote about loving your enemies, you know, and he didn't say like your enemies. Some people are unlikable, but love means you recognize that you are made of the same nature, and that, you know, harm is done out of ignorance. The person is obviously, they're probably just passing on whatever they cannot manage. And it doesn't mean it's excusable or acceptable, but I think having that understanding and feeling, you know, you can hate the deed, but not the person, right? So the act of torturing is unacceptable and should be eradicated. But if you go and kill the person who tortured you, it does not remove your traumas. It will probably create further traumas to deal with, right? So it's not you remove it with hatred or revenge or resilience alone. There has to be also that, like, a balance of the hardness and the softness, right? Or the direction and the adaptability.
Yeah. It's also what Jesus Christ was talking about.
Yeah, and they say, he made like, all these other conquerors, they built empires that ultimately collapsed. But what he built is still going today because the essence was so powerful and solid. And, it's not there's always going to be weird people with very selfish and perverted intentions that manipulate. But, I don't think Jesus ever said, priests should be celibate and be with children or anything like that. That just comes later with more ignorance, unfortunately. But there's a power in those, ancient truths that live on today.
And at the same time, this is something I was thinking about lately quite a bit, is how we have evolved so much technologically, but there's no general evolvement of our spirituality, it seems. No, like every person still has to do the work or the path, and many people are not, like, which you can clearly see when you spend a little bit of time, I don't know, in the internet or just driving a car or something like this. No, like how we are with this thing on the inside. In a sense, there's, like they figured all this stuff out like already quite a bit of time ago. We're still reading this old text. Yeah, we're still looking what did Socrates say, what did Jesus say, or what did the Buddha say, and so on. And this all, I mean, there's new things written and there's new ideas and so on and so forth. But I mean, we're not even doing that. What is 2,000 years old as a general public, and we all have this crazy technology and so on. But on this other layer, we just stay the same.
There's like a spiritual poverty, right?
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, it would be interesting to know how because that's just my assumption. Of course, I don't know. I have no idea how it was like 200 years ago or 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. How were the people? Maybe they were different from us. Maybe because, I mean, we are in general a relatively peaceful society, no? Like this is very wonderful what we've built. I mean, at least in the richer parts of the world where, okay, I can just, or at least in most richer parts of the world, I mean, I don't need a weapon. I can be outside anywhere at any time. I mean, sometimes I need to be, of course, with my eyes open and a little bit aware, but the likelihood that something severe is happening to me, even in a big city as Berlin, with lots of problems that it has, it's very safe. So on that hand, we could probably say, hey, that was probably not the case before, but maybe it was. Like, I don't know, we are lacking. We're lacking a little bit there.
And even in places where spirituality or those really beautiful religious principles are popular, like let's say somewhere like Thailand, they're Buddhist, or in India they're Hindu, or in Israel maybe there's a strong Judaism.
Or in Bavaria there's a lot of Christian people.
Like, you just don't know how deep is that faith, or how practical does it come out?
Like, is it just a cultural thing, like, or just like, is it just, I'm a Christian or I'm a Buddhist and so on, or are they practitioners of the?
Exactly. So it's really like, maybe there's not like a true seeker. That's, I think, very possibly always been rare, like a true seeker. But maybe one of the benefits of, even when it's just a cultural thing, I don't know. I don't even know if there'd be less violence, or, the morality would be that different. It's really hard to say because we only know our own context and era. But I do find quite nice, for example, and again, it may not translate into when something is really meaningful, but in Thailand, where I spent a bunch of time for Thai boxing, there is a respect for elder people compared to younger people, and from students to teachers. And in a lot of Asia, bowing or having palms together doesn't mean that you're a coward or a weakling. It just like namaste is the divinity within me bows to the divinity within you, or you are my school teacher and I will put my head a bit lower. In the West, this can be like, well, I submit to no one. I am, we're all, there's a democracy here. Who doesn't matter if you're 80-year-old wise man. I'm Puma.
You remind me, there's a scene in one Riddick movie, the second one. How's it called? Riddick. Do you know these movies? Probably
it's
not.
Action, no?
With Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I didn't see, but
yeah, whatever. It is just one scene, like everyone bows and he doesn't bow, and then there's this guy saying, "Why are you not bowing?" And he says, "I bow to no one." And when I was 15, I just rewatched this scene like 100 times. So I'm also a bit guilty of this, like not wanting to bow to anyone.
Especially Vin Diesel, he's such a strong role model, right?
Yes, he was definitely a little bit of my role model for a few seconds in my life then, with his low voice and so on.
Yeah, manly man.
I'm a bit further now, but this is what was good then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, spirituality. My conclusion of the spirituality topic would be that we have to, if it doesn't come alone, like it doesn't come just by itself. Like if someone is interested in working on themselves, then they have to do it. It's not automatically in society happening. And what I also was thinking about lately a lot is that, for me, it's clear that many that do this physical work, like we're doing or have done also, like for some time, like much more than training wise than what both of us are doing now in this movement training, that this for many, if they keep their eyes open, is leading more and more onto the spiritual path. I feel very connected to what you're speaking, because for me is also like that, like every day I do this inner work. Yeah. And I feel like it's automatically happening. Like when things like this were introduced to me when I was 18, 19, something like this, I couldn't do much with it. Yeah. For me, it was, okay, I'm not so interested in like, sitting around here and blah, 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 the stuff I want to do things and like with
be like Vin Diesel. He doesn't just sit there.
Exactly. I'm still in my Vin Diesel phase. Yeah. So, and I needed to, and that was good, because it came automatically. It was nice that I was introduced to such things. Like when I started to do like the wilderness things, there was a lot of this spiritual things also. Like I was introduced with it with like around 18 years old, or a little bit with when I was starting with 13 with some martial arts. We also did like sitting there and doing nothing, like like sort of Zen style things. And that opened a little bit the door that I knew, okay, it's there, but then it just happened by itself through all this training and being physically like really developed. And I think that's maybe where there can be misunderstanding with people that are, going beyond the body in a sense without having the physical experience, to develop your proprioception, to really understand, okay, what's going on with this physical shape of mine, and develop this healthily, and like you said, like how it also, no, like we talked about, okay, the dancing is how it much is affecting your brain, obviously also your soul in that sense, and that then, okay, it happens that if you keep the path open, if you keep the eyes open, it almost happens automatically that you feel it somewhere, now for me it's also okay to just sit here and hear how this is off. Or in the beginning you want to do a lot of development, you want to learn the handstand and so on and so forth and blah, and that's all, and that's part of the path. And at some point you really realize, now it's time for me to maybe do longer runs, because this is now the next thing, like this like long endurance, and what does it do with the mind and so on. And the training is changing, and I would say that was always the natural path, because in the natural world everyone was developing physically automatically. You just had to do your things, and now it can be that you sit at the computer and you sit in the school and you do mathematics and physics and so on and so forth, and you are very versed in this. But I wonder how much you can actually access these spiritual pathways if the mind-body connection is not there to actually go, in a sense, beyond that. I'm open to if you say you think something completely different, so feel free to.
Yeah, I know
feel free to disagree.
You're great like that. Both agree and disagree, or rather, like letting it evolve into, because it's pretty broad, and there's a few roots that you expressing, right, of this inner work. I think there will be a few categories that don't necessarily translate into each other, but all three are needed. So developing the physicality, so like, coordination, resilience, adaptability, all of movement stuff, that I don't think that leads to spirituality necessarily, right? Otherwise, every Olympic athlete will go and do meditation or something.
I wonder if they do actually.
I think it's so mixed. No idea. I mean, some commit
I don't
suicide,
know any Olympic
some
athletes.
Become alcoholic, and some they doing like they're great teachers, or they become celebrities, or they or they go down also spiritual path. So I don't think it's like a cause and effect. But at the same time, so I see like the three areas. There's the intellectual center as well, which is necessary for being able to inquire, to discern, what is real or unreal, or going to help my evolution or not. So the intellectual center is important, and then the spiritual center will be that becoming free of the patterns that limit us, all these conditioning, whether it's generational or personal or psychological or emotional or physical, to be free, so that that the authentic self is experienced, which is an embodied and beyond the body experience, right? That people speak of this, a oneness with everything, right? I'm at one with my neighbor and the tree and the ocean, because all come from the same source. So I think that, you could be a professor and you neglect the body, and maybe you neglect spirituality also. Or you can be a super athlete or artist, but you don't develop intellect, and maybe you don't have that curiosity for, it could be it feels enough for you to do that, or or even escaping into that. But I think maybe we're seeing more and more movement people, like our generation of, we can say, like middle OG teachers, getting more into spirituality, perhaps because most of these people have become very good at what they do, right? And the more wealthy you become, so maybe for us is wealth in movement or knowledge or something, the more you see how limited your field is, or what the world can offer you will always be limited. So then he said, well, what's beyond that? You know, I have now one arm handstand and 300 muscle ups and all of this stuff, and still I'm very unhappy. What, you know, maybe I got very rich also, and I got the most, I married to Van Diesel, right? My dream husband, and still I'm bloody miserable.
Vanessa
so
Diesel.
And so we're seeing the limitation of what this world can provide us. And I think there has to be some hunger, which can be triggered by great suffering or by getting what you want, or, you know, you can't teach it or force someone to have it. But I see more and more of the movement teachers, not all, because some, they have not changed, as you and I know, very much in even a decade, right? Maybe physically keep evolving, intellectually sounding better, but is there that feeling of unity with everyone? Is there that equal compassion, not just for those that serve them, but for all? So all three need to be developed, because maybe you decide, okay, I go to the Himalayas or I stay in Tibet and just meditate with the teacher for 20 years. You know, if or when you come back to society, can you apply those states of consciousness to your within relationships and things that would trigger you in the past? Or maybe you neglect the body and you are feeling that inner bliss and joy, but you actually have a lot of pain because you are weak and stiff, and you neglected maybe even emotional blockages that movement is helping to free up as well. So I think they are all important and they all fit together, but it's not one will bring, you know, I perfect this and that happens automatically.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You somehow probably increase to say a bit mathematical, the potential likelihood of a positive outcome when you do an embodiment practice, like when you just understand your physicality, which for sure doesn't need to be like the more extreme or nowadays extreme movement stuff, but you know, it can be things like Feldenkrais or something like this, where you just you know, get to know your body, or yoga, of course, this
or gardening and walking in nature, hiking, like
no hiking, it's cannot be. No.
What? I'm not hiking. Yeah, and I do want to say though that because I'm kind of mixing with, you know, I have like all my movement friends, and I have, you know, a few spiritual friends, and then some very smart friends, and some have all three, of course. And
Nice.
but I see the ones who are just only do focus on spirituality. I don't think I can think of anyone who is not always complaining about their health problems.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that even their internal attainment, if they're always like, spirituality is to, you know, transcend the attachment to the body, right? Because we take ourselves to be the body. So whatever happens to the body is determining our whole existence and all the emotions we feel. But so maybe they have high state of attainment within meditation, but then they're obsessed with their painful knee, and then they can't digest the food that they're eating, and then they're taking a medication for something else. Like that's again neglecting another area. So it's very important, I think, to not be excellent in every area, but to not neglect a certain area. And the same with the movement. People, there's many very unhappy, fantastic, really amazing movers where you go like, how, if I could do that, I'm sure I'd be like super happy. But that's just not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the interesting thing, no? How we think, there's an outside thing, and then if we get it, then my problems will be solved. And it's like, it can be an outside thing, like a skill that I don't have, like a handstand or something like this, or of course also an item, like
or
whatever
relationship, or you know, this thing will fix me or fulfill me permanently. But they never do, because the mind will move on to the next thing.
And of course, there is outside things that are very helpful. Like when you don't have food, you need something from outside. Yeah, like definitely because we are in relationship with our environment. We need to breathe, we need to drink, we need to eat, we need other people also. Like that's also part of our health, or a shelter and so on. Yeah, we need this things, but then sometimes we don't realize what we already have, maybe also the things, and this is maybe the thing we need to realize. You know, something I'm also thinking about, like you said, the mind is searching the next thing, and I think my mind is relatively well attuned with feeling pleasure with things that I still that I already have for a longer time, because I read all these books about various things with this topic about like your happiness and blah blah blah, and there's this thing that people say, when you buy something that you really want to have, then very quickly your happiness about it deteriorates. Like you buy a new thing and it's shiny and nice, and then soon later it's like normal for you. I personally don't have this so much. I feel like I have something for a long time, I still feel like I look at it and I still feel, wow, that I own this thing. It's like
a microphone, right? This flashy
microphone that I have, this microphone. I feel not very attached to this microphone, to be honest, but no, but it really that I'm still like years after, it doesn't deteriorate so much for me. Like I feel I can still appreciate so much, like, I have this, I use it, and I feel blessed that I can have this. This is a material thing that I have.
That's beautiful, and I think it's quite rare. It's unfortunately it's very rare, because there'd be much less dissatisfaction and like, the world is really trying to train us to cultivate greed, right? It's not, and I guess a survival mechanism also is, if I accumulate more, I am, safer. Like that's like a primal thing, but or happier, or I have more than the village next door or something. But that's quite rare, and it's really maybe something that one of the many gifts that you can bring, like the monk who came to your school, like if this is something again that younger people get more exposure to, or if you can turn this into a practice. I just pictured you in a circle with a bunch of children and you're doing gratitude practice with Joseph.
At first I need to get tortured for 10 years by the Chinese government. So this,
So there's more legitimate.
Exactly. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Like, which time is good for it, now I need to be here for the kids, but maybe in 10 years I'm ready to get tortured for a few years. So I'm looking in my calendar currently when this could happen.
But I'm serious, it's an important message, which I think you kind of do share, on your platforms, but just like, doing one thing at a time, not selling freedom for technology, or using the technology that's really relevant and appropriate for your context, but not having
like this microphone.
Yeah, like the mic. That's right. Yeah, it's such an important message. And even teaching movement workshops, there's this perception of more is better, so someone's like, well, what are you going to show what's new now, what's the evolution,
next move? Yeah,
what's the next move? Or even for teaching, in the first several workshops, I thought, I need to they paid a lot of money, or at the time wasn't even much, but
I need to put a lot of stuff, a lot of material.
Like really make it worth their time. And then I started to see the really experienced people, they repeat the same thing again and again and again, and they're giving just, it's the whole experience, is not how many, the quantity, or what's the latest, newest thing. And as the depth of the student and practitioner evolves, I love to listen to my teacher in India, his we call his satsangs, when he hold a space for the group. I may hear something like a week ago and I go, oh, that's so relevant to all the stuff I'm struggling with right now. It's so good. And, it's a new teaching he has. And then I go, let me look at 2018. And I watch and I'm like, oh, he was saying the exact same thing, but my brain was not able to, it interpreted it in a different way. So, because if you're giving a foundation, the foundation is constant. There'll be variability, but principles are principles. So this whole more is better is like really detrimental.
Yeah. And, this is also like, in a sense, business-wise, something that Mariana and me realized through time. We had this realization, wait a second, people are not paying us necessarily. There's this and this people. People are not paying us to receive more and more material, but actually to receive, in a sense, less material, because there's so much material out there. There's so much stuff, and it's just too much. Yeah. So people come into our coaching also because they want to have clarity, just clarity, not amazing amounts of stuff and new stuff. They just want to know what shall I do now? What is the effective thing? So I don't need to make years of mistakes because I have my job, I have my family, and so on and so forth. I want to train. Please give me the effective stuff. And we have in our coaching, we have sort of both types. We have this type that is like very much in life and wants to use their money also to get an effective program. And then we have also young guys or professionals that really want to broaden their material, and that then ask us regularly, can you give me a bit more? I'm super excited. And that's also very, very nice. And we also do this. And this was the thing that I always started, that I started with, because I came from, I'm super interested. I want to do lots of things. And I assumed everyone wants to learn lots of things and wants to get a lot of material. Yeah. But now with everything aging, like I'm getting older, and also the people that look at my stuff age with me. Like we, of course, have 18-year-olds. We have 70-year-olds. Yeah. But of course, there's always this age bubble that is sort of around me, and of course, these people, there are now less people that are just fresh from school, but many people that are training with us that have their full-time job, or even more than full-time job, and two kids, and so on and so forth. And they are very happy training with us for a long time, just having a few different tasks and exercises to do, but really doing them and really seeing the change throughout time, because the clarity is there. I'm doing this, nice. Now, after a few months, wow, I'm completely different because now I know what to do.
Yeah. Amazing.
Soisci, I have one last thing, and I think then we are time-wise at the end for today. But it's one thing that is a bit different from what we talked about. So tiny change of topic for the last thing. You said in this facility that you're working on now at, there's many more women than males. And I wrote down for me as a question, okay, the communication in the internet, like in the social media, how is that differing when you want to get more males into the gym or when you want to get more females? And I'm interested to hear from you how to get more females into the train, because my ratio is definitely less females than males, less women than males. And I think for other people it's maybe similar. There's some gyms, some places like this, some like this. Yeah. But I know from others, or where I've seen the gyms, there were also a little bit more males than females.
Yeah. So again, I'm not like a guru of bringing balance into facilities, but and it just happened really organically. But I don't know. I haven't spent time with Mariana yet, but with you're very manly man, right? So
sometimes
if you look, for example, I saw Roy from Israel, Super Beast. He did
the Vin Diesel of movement.
Yes, the Vin Diesel of movement. That's right. Every guy I know has the biggest man crush on him. They're like, "Oh my God, you met him?" I say, "Yeah, he's very nice. He's a normal guy." So, yes. So I saw online he did his own workshop in Thailand somewhere. And I think it was like 98% men that, in the pictures and the videos.
Yes.
And I said, I could have told you that will happen even without looking at the pictures, because if you look at him, he's a bit intimidating unless you're like maybe a really able-bodied female CrossFitter or something that has also that strong masculine quality. It's not, he's brilliant, like both in practicing and teaching and online presence, but it's not appealing for women to go as a student to do that, right? So I think looking at qualities that are presented, so not just, is it a male teacher or a female teacher, because you could have a masculine female or a feminine male, and that will also play a part in that. But presenting, I don't know, I would present Mariana. She's beautiful and a dancer and does, her movements. They are powerful, but they're feminine, right? Your movements are graceful and they're very masculine. My little experimental strategy with social media here is we do a lot of dancing and flowing and playing. And I say, I'm going to try and film less and less of this stuff. And I'm just going to get close up of people doing cool shit on the rings, these, more empowering. So more masculine quality of movement, of music, of environment to bring more male. So for female, it could be worth experimenting to put more, changing the music, the flowy, creative, open movements, right? So if you think of like stereotypically, of course, these are all stereotype, like a masculinity is a structure, hardness, strength, direction, and especially you mentioned the program is effective. That sounds kind of masculine to me, right? So then maybe showing more of the other side where, well, improvisation is really, really important. And here is an example that is very accessible, not intimidating, that everyone can improvise, and showing more, I don't know, like linear movement, I think masculine, a curve movement, I think more feminine. So just experimenting with what qualities you're choosing to present and seeing how over time, what kind of effect that has.
Yeah, what is interesting for me is in my group training, the ratio is around 50-50, actually. There was even times when there were more women than males. There was even sometimes 70-30 women, like 70% women. Like, bit like this. That changed, actually. I think when I got kids, the ratio, there were more women coming, and maybe I was a bit softening also, because before it was more like maybe 10-20% women. So in the group training, we have a good ratio. I'm very happy with that. And in my online coaching is very different. Like they are 10-20. If it's 20% women, then maybe the max I ever had ratio wise in the online work was 30% women. But there the ratio is very different. And I was, I'm wondering sometimes, is it maybe also the format that is different? But I don't want to blame the format, but maybe my communication, how I communicate my online services is different from how I communicate my group training in Berlin or something like this. Yeah. Interesting.
And also there can be nothing, it may be a good thing. Some coaches prefer to work with one and not the other more, or it's hard to say, maybe this is better for men, or actually I still really want to have a more even, like, ratio.
I like it to have it even, because also as a feedback for the practice that I'm offering, that I think it's very good to have this evenness, because the people that are doing it are shaping the practice also. It's like the feedback loop, no? I reflect on what is important for them and know how things are working for them. And if it would be, if the ratio would be too much towards males, then from what I wish for the practice, that it's very holistic, then that would be very difficult to create, actually, I think.
Yeah. And even maybe the language, for the whatever demography. So you also are some kind of, maybe in Germany, the German Van Diesel of movement, right? And I
try to be the Gandalf of movement.
No, you're too young. You can
young Gandalf.
Oh no.
He was maybe young also at some point. We don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, long time ago. So you maybe don't even need to like sell your strength per se, because it will speak for itself, your presence. And like you saw, your presence changed after you became a father compared to before. And that will, people feel that, right? We're still like sensitive mammals. But then even, I don't know, online, there's so many things like targeting demography, like we're there to solve a problem for someone, right? So maybe for a young male, it's clear what the benefits may be. But what if the woman gave birth and she wants to get in better shape? Then maybe she'll go, oh, well, Joseph's stuff is not exactly what I'm looking for. But maybe you could give her a great session, but she wouldn't know it looking at what you're showing. Or I don't know, I think that's where targeting a little bit the kind of problem you're gonna be dealing with, or who would really benefit, I think. But that's also not a really strong area for me, where that's more as you're studying all the marketing stuff. I think that will come up.
Yeah. It's it's just interesting to hear to hear an opinion from a female practitioner in this, because mostly the people that I talk about with this are about like other teachers. Like, of course, mainly I talk with Mariana, so I have like the female perspective like all the time actually. But if I talk to other teachers in other cities, they are mainly male. So that's why it was very interesting for me to ask you. Good. Okay, let's wrap it up. Soisci, we talked about how your practice has evolved with the location change, also the changes, and then we went into the world of the spiritual and esoteric. That was very beautiful as well, and it's nice how we got from there, and then in the end we got a little bit back into the more concrete practice things, like with this question that I asked. Good. Do you have a conclusive thought that is on your mind that you would share with me, Soisci?
Yes. I think, I don't know, that what's just been coming up for me, which is probably going to be quite useful for the audience also, is the importance of a teacher of any path that you're taking, right? So like you and I are teaching movement or maybe meditation and then other subcategories, and we are like guides for people, and we know that you can figure things out alone, but you won't usually, you're going to have so many pitfalls or you get lost along the way, right? If we've had movement teachers that we dedicated years to, or that still we learning from, and then we teaching. So I think I just really want to acknowledge the power and importance of the role of a teacher, whether someone is learning meditation or mathematics or better running technique. I think that's deserves a mention because it didn't come up specifically.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, for me, I'm very autodidactic by nature. Like I like to do a lot of practice in calmness and by myself also. But I always, in every topic, look for a teacher, look for material, and then stay with them. Usually for a long time, for several years, learning from them. Nice. Thank you, Soisci. Thank you so much. When people want to see more of what you're posting and reading, what is currently the best thing? It's Instagram. Shall they look at your Instagram?
I would say Instagram right now.
Okay.
So that's Soisci Human Patterns with like underscores. I will be making new everything soon, but slowly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when you listen to this, dear listener, maybe there's already a new everything, whatever that means. But we will be on the lookout and see. Okay, Soisci, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really fun and enlightening.